Yup. Red light again. Because we gotta do another worst video tonight. So, strap yourselves in. 14 plus again, just like the last one, even though I can't fit it into the actual thumbnail of this video. And some of these you're definitely gonna know belong on this list. Others might surprise you. I don't know. But let's go through it together. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Animation Station, your number one station for anything and everything animation. Welcome back to your endless season. And since we finished off the movies, we gotta move to a new medium. Movie lists are done, so now it's time to move on to the next medium of media to discuss. Video games. Since I want to end this year on a positive note, and especially because of how overall amazing this year was for gaming, we'll take a journey through the negative first. These are the games that instead of taking us on amazing adventures, turned out every second of time spent on them into a tedious job. Before we start though, there are a few dishonorable mentions that deserve to be called out for being either disappointing or just flat out sucking but not hard enough to actually make the list. Those games are Starfield, Loop 8, Summer of Gods, Blanc, Layers of Fears, and Wo Long Fallen Dynasty. Now with those out of the way, let's get to the real stars of the show, shall we? Time's come to pay the piper. As now, last night, we knocked out the top 20 worst movies of 2023. Now it's time for the top 15 worst games of 2023. I hope you guys enjoy. I'm going to mostly read off my script because it's a very, very lengthy one, and explains far better than I can in improv my thoughts on everything on the list. So, let's get this started, shall we? So first up, at number 15 is going to be a game that's going to shock you that's on the list, but it's on here for pure principle alone. That game is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I know that this is going to shock many of you seeing this highly anticipated sequel to the excellent Fallen Order on the worst list. And let me just say right now that it's entirely because of EA and not the fault of the development team themselves. EA forced the devs to rush this game out the door before it was fully ready to make as much money from the Star Wars fans as possible as quick as possible. And as a result, this game was an absolute disaster on release. I think you may have already seen videos about it, but glitches, bugs, lag, slowdown, and outright game-breaking crashes all happened as a result of rushing it out the door. And the fact that this is on current-gen consoles gives them even less excuse on why this turned out the way it did. Yes, I'm sure it's been relatively fixed with patches since then, and yes, the storytelling and voice acting is still very good, which does keep it from going any lower on the list. Like, if it weren't for the technical problems and EA very blatantly rushing this out the door before it was ready, this would not even be on the list. I'd probably put Starfield here instead. But as someone who tried desperately to play this game on day one release and experienced many of these issues myself, it's more than enough to justify its placement on the worst list. Screw you, EA, I hope you lose all the Star Wars rights soon because you clearly have no idea how to use them correctly. Battlefield, Battlefield 2, need I say more? Let's move on. So yeah, that game is more there because of EA and not because of the game itself. The game itself is fine, but it was so broken on release that after 3 hours of trying, I gave up. So I haven't seen past the first 3 hours of the game. And you may be saying, oh, that's too harsh to put it on the list then. No, it's the same logic about how and why Overwatch 2 was on the list last year. So, thanks EA. And surprisingly, it's not even the worst game you did this year. But before we get to that, we have a couple other entries to get through, so let's go through them together. Next up at number 14 is technically going to be a tie between two games, and they're both from the same license, and I threw them in the same spot because they don't deserve to just both take one slot each. And those games are Avatar Generations and Avatar Quest for Balance. Undeniably, it pains me to put anything related to the fantastic animated series Avatar The Last Airbender on this list. But this license really took a beating this year with not just one but two terrible games back to back. First was Generations, an absolutely abysmal mobile exclusive turn-based RPG that was so greedy and so broken that it was shut down completely before it even lasted a full year. Literally shut down on December 2nd of this very year. Yes, the game was shut down. Let me look here. A mere 5 weeks ago, this game was shut down. And it deserved to be shut down because of the terrible graphics, asinine microtransactions, and constant crashes. This game had so many problems, especially trying to run it on a mobile phone. Then, if that wasn't insulting enough, Game Mill Entertainment decided to release a console game that was somehow even worse than the mobile game, Quest for Balance. And that game is Quest for Balance. PS2 graphics on modern consoles, bad controls, cluttered storytelling so abridged and rushed that makes Dragon Ball Z Kakarot look extensive in comparison, boring world design that barely resembles locations from the actual show, a lot of bugs, including constantly falling through the floor and out of the game itself, multiple times, and zero enjoyability whether you're a fan or not. It's a shameless cash grab to ride the hype of this series' resurgence thanks to the upcoming Netflix live-action remake series. And the fact that this came out at a full price, $60, very shortly after the slightly cheaper and way better Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2 by the same fucking publisher is absolutely pathetic. And what's even more unbelievable is that this is not even Game Mill's worst game of this year despite all this. So, yeah, in short, screw this game. Screw this game for crapping on the franchise, and screw it for just being a blatant cash grab. Clearly rushed out the door before it was even close to ready. I have nothing more to say. Screw this game, and screw Generations 2. It deserved to get shut down. And hopefully Quest for Balance dies in a month. I have nothing more to say. Let's just move on. I don't want to pop a blood vessel too early because I want to save my true rage for the worst of the worst. Number 13 is an easy target, Crime Boss Rockay City. The game that was announced out of nowhere at the Game Awards last year by a presumably drunk Michael Madsen, and starring an all-star cast of legends including Madsen himself, Donald Glover, Sally Field, Michael Rooker, and even Chuck Norris. And when you play it, you wonder if they were all somehow blackmailed into voicing in this atrocious half-assed Payday knockoff. Sure, there's worse games out there, which keeps it relatively high on the list, but no terrible games of this year just is not complete without this thing. Boring, repetitive gameplay, terrible voice acting from actors who should know better. Bland characters, uninteresting world design, generic controls, and no replayability whatsoever. Just play Payday 2 instead. It's more than well worth your time over this crap. And that's all there is that needs to be said about it, because it's one of the most predictable entries on this list. So let's just move on. 12. Speaking of easy targets, let's get another one out of the way. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. It's one thing to just have another bad Call of Duty game, but it's a completely different thing when said bad Call of Duty game actually has the balls to crap over its own legacy in the process. For those who don't know, the original Modern Warfare trilogy are some of the most beloved first-person shooters of all time, the second game in particular being many people's all-time favorite of the entire genre, next to Battlefield 3 and Halo 2, that has a legitimately great story and very memorable characters. Price, Makarov, Shepard, Ghost, Soap, etc. That we watched progress and develop as we played through all three campaigns of all three games. Sure, the original MW3 was the weakest of the trilogy, yes, but it was still a pretty good game and gave a somewhat satisfying conclusion to the trilogy. Thus why they ended the story there and started fresh shortly after with the creation of the Black Ops series. But this supposed remake is so bad and its story is so mind-bogglingly awful and short that it's an outright insult to the legacy of the original trilogy, and especially insulting to all the old-school fans like me, who were insidiously exploited by Activision because of our nostalgia. Sure, the graphics may be up to par with modern platforms and look really nice, but its gameplay is so tired and boring. Its new version of these characters is horrible to the point of insulting. Warzone still sucks on top of that, with more focused on microtransactions instead of actually fixing its broken ineptitude. Its asinine $70 to $100 price tag, and how overall crushingly disappointing it is when compared to games released decades ago. I am done with this series. It's a corporate, soulless, cash-grabbing, asinine, out-of-touch, greedy shell of its former self. And thank you, Christopher Judge, for taking time during the Game Awards of this year to call them out on their bullshit. Seriously, thank you, Christopher Judge. You earned my admiration for calling them out. So, I literally have nothing else to say. It's another bad Call of Duty game that's not worth your time, and I'm officially done with this shit excuse of a series that used to be one of the greatest first-person shooter franchises of all time, but is now just a shallow, hollow, corporate, greedy, blatantly cash-grabby, and half-assed shell of its former self. I have nothing more to say. Let's just move on. Fuck this game. Number 11 is Justice League Cosmic Chaos. Time for another terrible licensed game, and this time from the shovelware factory known as OG Games. Now, Cosmic Chaos doesn't sound too bad on paper. A third-person multiplayer action game where you can play as the many different members of the League themselves and traverse through Metropolis to save the city from an evil villain and his baddies. But when you play it, you immediately realize that you just wasted $40 on a slow, boring, tedious, and outright mindless button masher with zero actual worthwhile challenge for experienced gamers and zero satisfaction for any DC fans in general. This was already bad enough, but then it sunk even lower thanks to the absolute garbage Teen Titans Go level writing and dialogue, which even went so far as to make Superman into a Karen. There's literally a line of dialogue that's played over and over while you're in fights, with Superman saying, "I'd like to speak to your boss." Yeah, you want to know why that line sucks so bad? Go watch Angry Joe Show's little gameplay video of it. He rages over it way more than I ever could. And simply because I knew that this was going to be shovelware, but I decided maybe, just maybe, it'd be okay. But it's not. It's trash. And this writing is so bad that it makes even the worst of DC comic books stellar in comparison. And the fact that this is the company that we're getting the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem tie-in video game from next year is infuriating. Stay far away from this bottom barrel trash. Go play Lego Batman 2 and 3 instead. Sure, those ones take place in Gotham and not Metropolis, but at least you have a legitimately great game and not a burning, half-assed dumpster fire. Just a word of wisdom, guys. Go play the Lego Batman games. They are way better than this crap, and you can get it for much cheaper on Amazon if you go for used copies that are mostly complete in box. I have nothing more to say. Let's just move on. And now for the worst of the worst. Buckle up. It's time to dive into the 10 worst games of this year. And oh boy, are there some bad ones in this one. I don't know whether or not it's worse than last year, but there are so many bad games this year that the top 10 is the lowest of lows of top 10s that I think I've ever reviewed in any medium of media ever. Yes, even over the top 20 worst movies list. It pisses me off that much. But let's take it through step by step. And if you want a perfect example of how this year of gaming on the negative side of things is so intensely negative that it's mind-boggling, look no further than our number 10 spot, which is the game that apparently won worst game last year, but yet barely even made the top 10 this year. Madden NFL 24. Another year, another wasted breath ranting about the biggest and most blatantly obvious scam in all of gaming, that is Madden NFL and EA's continuous insidious scumbaggery. It topped the list last year for its soulless grave robbery of John Madden himself, but this year had so many bad games that it barely even made the top 10. I would go in depth and explain every single reason why this game sucks so hard, but I don't even need to, because it's literally the exact same game as Madden 23, which is the exact same game as 22, which is the exact same game as 21, which is the exact same game as 20, which is the exact same game as 19, which is the exact game of 18. You get the fucking point. It's the same game every single fucking year. So there's no point explaining it in depth and in detail why it sucks so bad, because it's the same fucking problems every single year. Because EA refuses to change a single fucking thing. Yeah, it's the exact same game as Madden 23, just with a new cover art of Josh Allen. Shame on you, Josh Allen. You were supposed to be one of the people that actually stood against this shit, but I guess you like money, and you just needed money, so you decided, I'm just going to be on the cover of a piece of shit. Come on, Josh, you're better than that. Have some fucking dignity. And slightly different name. Sure, the graphics are slightly better, and there's some very minor improvements made here and there, but still the exact fucking same. The same buggy, messy, almost outright unplayable gameplay. The same broken stats that are nowhere near realistic football stats. The same horrible presentation, but just with a different color code now. And the same fucking microtransactions of cosmetics and Ultimate Team and all these fucking packs that you had to bust in Ultimate Team just to get these cards, and you can only beat your opponent if your rarity and your overall number is high enough, because it's all about fucking numbers and all about wasting your fucking money on this stupid gambling simulator. Sorry, I'm getting way too angry, but point is, stop buying this sick filth. Buy a used Xbox 360 or a used PlayStation 4 and play ESPN NFL 2K5 or Mutant Football League instead. Or hell, play Wildcard Football. That game's actually pretty decent from what I've heard. Or hell, even Retro Bowl, a game that you can play for free on mobile and pay like $5 or so to play on your Switch. Point is, there are way better football games out there. You just need to know where to look to find them. I'm sorry for getting so angry, but I'm just so sick of this shit being shoveled in our faces every year. And its toxic, shitty demographic continues to eat it up without a peep for quality or innovation. This shit needs to stop before it ruins the rest of gaming. And before you ask, where's NBA and NHL? Well, it's because they're not even the worst offenders. It's always been Madden. Madden has always been the shittiest sports game for the past 2 decades or so. Like, name the last good Madden. What was the last good Madden? Madden 11? Maybe 12? Way back in the fucking days of the PlayStation 3? It's 2023, guys. You deserve better, and you need to speak with your fucking wallets. So maybe, just maybe, we can get EA to just maybe try harder to actually give us a game worth the $60, $70, hell, $120 price tag. Because right now, it's just the same recycled shit over and over with little to no improvement whatsoever that still continuously gets to make billions of dollars every single year. It's disgusting, it's atrocious, it's reprehensible, and I'm fucking sick and tired of it. Wake up, sports gamers. Ask for more in your sports games so that we, actual, true football fans, have a game that actually feels like real simulation football. That's all I ask for, and considering it's EA, apparently, it's just too much. Fuck this greedy shit company, and fuck Madden to hell. There, I'm done. I already wasted way more time on this than I wanted to, so let's just fly through these next few very quickly, shall we? Number 9 is Wanted Dead. A developer you wrong one. What the hell happened to the developers of the excellent Ninja Gaiden series for them to make such a tedious, derivative, asinine, and downright baffling mess like this? Someone please tell me, because I don't have a clue. Terrible controls, constant lag, tedious boss fights, laughable and enemy AI, bad story, and a very boring assortment of guns and blades that have been so overdone and have little to no creativity in their design whatsoever. Not much else to say here, really. Just don't spend your money. That's it, moving on. Number 8 is Ravenbound. A developer you've probably never heard of makes a game you've probably never played. This open-world roguelike game was pretty ambitious, which I can admire, especially considering how overcrowded the genre has become over the past few years, mainly thanks to the popularity of Hades. But in execution, it was a tedious slog that was so difficult to even play due to the constant connection issues that continuously ruined the experience. I hold no ill will towards anyone involved, as I'm sure that they were trying their best to actually make a good game. But unfortunately, the project was just too lost in its own ambition to be saved. I only hope that the team uses this as a learning experience and comes back next time with something much better. Yeah, I hold no ill will against the developers or publishers. They were probably just working with the best they had, and it just didn't work out. It didn't work out in the end. And that's okay. Sometimes you have to fail in order to learn. So, yep, that's why Ravenbound's number 8. Because while it is a bad game, I hold no ill will or disrespect towards anyone involved in it. That's it, moving on. Number 7 is Panic Porcupine. I love Sonic, you love Sonic, we all love Sonic. But I'm by no means against fan-made games that take inspiration from the Sonic formula or gameplay style. But this isn't a fan-made inspiration. This is a downright shameless, cash-grabbing bargain bin knockoff of a Sonic game of this franchise, made for no other purpose than to try and trick people who are unaware or inexperienced with said franchise to buy it for their kids. And a very bad knockoff at that, with terrible level design, unresponsive controls, horrendous graphics, numerous glitches, and inept storytelling that just infuriates me to a degree so alarming that even Sonic 06 is quaking in its boots. Avoid this at all costs. Nothing else to say, it's a shitty Sonic clone. And unlike some, which I can forgive because they're fan-made games that are inspired by the Sonic style, this was a shameless knockoff from the very beginning. So, that's it. Let's just move on. Number 6 goes to the actual worst sports game of this year. Yes, it's not Madden. That's how bad the worst of this year is. Number 6, and the worst sports game of 2023, is Blood Bowl 3. Why? Well, I actually have a pretty lengthy explanation for this one, so enjoy. Yes, believe it or not, there was actually a football game released this year that was worse than Madden 24, and somehow even more disgustingly insidious with its microtransactions that even Madden could dare dream of. Unlike Madden, where you can buy one set of cosmetics to use on your entire team, Blood Bowl 3 forces you to buy each cosmetic for every single character on your entire team individually. Helmets, pads, and even different heads have to all be bought multiple times for each and every single player on your fucking team individually. For example, let's say you find this one really cool looking helmet on the online shop and want to equip it to everyone on your team so they all match. And for this example, let's say this one helmet is the in-game currency equivalent of about $5. In Madden, you can simply buy this one helmet for $5 and automatically equip it to everyone on your team, and that's that. But in Blood Bowl 3, you have to spend $5 multiplied by the number of players on your team. Let's say it's about 22 players in total for this example. 11 players on both offense and defense on both sides of the ball, which could have you spending upwards of $105 plus for that one fucking helmet for your entire fucking team. Does that sound like a good business investment to you? If that wasn't already bad enough, then you also have to buy cheerleaders and dice on top of that for special perks to get through certain parts of the game itself. In other terms, blatant paywalls that halt progression, that are somehow even worse than the paywalls of Genshin fucking Impact. Yes, I did just go there. But the final nail in the coffin is that the actual game itself, with all these microtransactions and all this rampant greed, was released unfinished to ensure that it made as much money as possible, which is so fucking shady and reprehensible that it's downright criminal. Fuck these greedy corporate morons and fuck this asinine half-assed rushed out game. Don't buy Blood Bowl 3. Don't waste any money on Blood Bowl 3. It's an unfinished, rushed out, greedy, asinine pile of shit that is not worth your time. Don't bother. Play literally any other football game instead. Aside from Madden. Fuck Madden. But my point still stands. Fuck Blood Bowl 3. Here we go. Top 5. Oh boy. This is when we get into the real shit. Like, the first 10 to 6 were bad, but top 5 is on its own level of fucking terribleness. I don't care if that is or isn't a word, that's what we're going with. Terribleness. Because these next 5 games are so bad, so terrible, so shitty, that it makes me want to put my controller through a wall. Yes, they do really suck that hard. So, let's go through this top 5 together, shall we? Number 5 is the token Square Enix game of every single worst list since 2010. This year, it's Forspoken. Pretty much every year without fail since 2010, Square Enix has continuously released at least one of the absolute shittiest games of the year that everyone rightfully rips to shreds in their worst games lists. Final Fantasy XIV Online, Mindjack, The Quiet Man, Balan Wonderworld, Left Alive, Babylon's Fall, Chocobo GT, Marvel's Avengers, and many other terrible games have all been made by Square Enix within the past decade or so. And with Forspoken, that trend continues onwards into 2023. While it's not the worst of their failures, it's still a dreadful experience that's an absolute pain in the ass to play through from start to finish. Terrible profanity-filled writing for no reason other than just to have profanity, shitty characters that are entirely unlikable and you want all of them to die, bland voice acting from people that clearly were not paid enough, tedious gameplay that is so slow, boring, and monotonous that it becomes a drag within only the first 5 minutes of beginning the game, mediocre world design that's just generic, basic fantasy, terrible storytelling that's so cliche that you can literally predict every single fucking beat of the story before it even happens, boring boss fights that put most other games to shame, bad controls that are so hard to get a grasp on, unimpressive music that just sounds like it was taken from a copyright-free video off of YouTube, and asinine combat all make this a complete waste of your $70. Shitty company makes another shitty game. Enough said. See you next year, Square Enix, you stupid, stupid fucking bastards. That's literally all I have to say. Square Enix sucks ass. You wanna know why I don't touch Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy? It's because it's made by Square Enix. And I fucking hate this company even more than Ubisoft. Even more than Activision. Even more than EA. Fuck Square Enix. I know some people like to make other jokes like, hashtag fuck Konami or whatever. No. It's hashtag fuck Square Enix. Let's move on, because we have even worse games to get through. Next up, number 4, the most recent entry into this list, the finals. Never have I given up on a game so quickly that after a mere 2 hours of trying to play it, I immediately uninstalled it and told it to go fuck itself in the ass with a pipe. But congrats, finals, you're the first to make me outright rage quit. Shit gameplay, shit mechanics, shit gameplay, shit music, shit servers, shit rewards, shit gameplay, extra shit microtransactions, and just shit gameplay. Simply an unplayable fucking mess. Go play Fortnite instead, it is far better than this absolute trash fire. And a big fuck you to everyone who lied about it online, calling it actually good. When in reality, it is one of the most blatantly god-awful free-to-play games I've ever played in my fucking life. Nothing else needs to be said. Fuck this game. Here we go, top 3. These 3 are probably all predictable, and they're the games you're probably wondering, well, where's this, and where's this? Well, all 3 of them are about to come your way in rapid succession, so here we go. Time for the real bottom of the barrel. Why? Because all 3 of these games are a 0 out of 10. Yep, all 3 of them are 0 out of 10 games. You want to know why? Well, let's talk about it together. Starting with number 3, the actual worst Game Mail Entertainment game released this year that all of you were waiting to see where it was going to fall on my list. Pretty fucking high. Skull Island: Rise of Kong. Yeah, you all knew this one was coming, and it's just as awful as you've heard. Horrendous graphics, bad gameplay, unresponsive controls, frustrating design, lazy music, terrible storytelling, and an ending so bad that it leads you to actually question your sanity are all that awaits you in this blatantly obvious and bafflingly half-assed rushed-out cash grab attempting to ride the hype of the upcoming Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire all the way to the bank. But instead, thankfully, it fucking tanked harder than Nerf Legends. And instead now resides in infamy among the absolute worst licensed games of all time. Again, right up there with Nerf Legends. But yet, it's not even the worst of the licensed games that was released this year. You wanna know what it is? Number 2, the other most predictable entry on this list. Gollum! Lord of the Rings Gollum. Alright, everyone, here it is. The most infamously shit game of the entire year that you already knew had to make this list. A game so unbelievably horrendous and unplayable that it literally killed the development team behind it, Daedalus Studios, within less than a year after this abomination of nature was released out into the world. A game so shitty and so mind-numbing that it makes Ride to Hell Retribution and Sonic 06 both look competent in comparison. A game so boring and broken that it easily stands head and shoulders above most of the other shitty games released this year, as well as above all the other shitty half-assed rushed-out cash-grabbing asinine Trustfire licensed games released from the past 50 years at the very least. So if it's all of this and possibly more, then how in the 9 realms of hell is it not number 1 on this list? The answer, my friends, is actually pretty simple. As shitty and indescribably horrible this absolute waste of space is, I had no anticipation nor expectations for it whatsoever. Thus, it didn't really disappoint me with how shitty it turned out. Whereas with my actual number 1 game, I had some kind of expectations going into it. Even with that said, though, this is still an egregious pile of orc shit that deserves the ultimate fate of the character itself. To burn in the fiery lava pits of Mordor and incinerate into ashes to be blown away by the winds of the mountains and buried by the sands of time. Fuck this pile of unfinished, rushed out garbage. I have nothing more to say. Why? Because there's only one game that was worse than Gollum this year, believe it or not. And that may surprise you. Or maybe it won't. I don't know. But it's a game so bad that I would probably put it in my top 10 worst games of all time. Yes, it is that fucking terrible. It is a game so bad, so terrible, so greedy, so asinine, and so up its own fucking ass that it makes me hate the company involved in making it. It makes me hate the developers that thought it was actually finished and ready to go out the door. And most of all, it makes me hate the fucking platform that decided to distribute it. What do I mean by that? Well, let's do it together, shall we? Number 1. The worst game of 2023, in my personal opinion, is a game I had expectation for, that I was actually excited about, but disappointed me to the point of feeling insulted, feeling conned, feeling taken advantage of, and most of all, feeling robbed of my fucking money and my time. What game was that? Well, honestly, no other game I can think of can top this list other than this fucking abomination right here. Redfall. I am so fucking done with Bethesda and their bullshit. Ever since the disaster of Fallout 76, I pretty much gave up on this greedy dumbass company ever making a Skyrim level game or just a passable game in general ever again. Sure, Doom Eternal was great, but that was purely because of id Software and not Bethesda themselves. From Deathloop to Starfield to Elder Scrolls Blades to the tone-deaf Fallout 76 first membership that costs $100 fucking dollars on top of a $60, $70 game, they've pretty much been putting out nothing but non-stop fucking garbage for the past 5 years. But when Redfall was initially announced at the Game Awards, I was actually pretty excited about it. A first-person co-op shooter where you and a team of 3 friends battle against a legion of vampires with special powers all throughout the day and night to save a small town from being overtaken by these vampires. Sounded like so much fun on paper. Unfortunately, the game we got was a fucking nightmare! Putting aside its server and connection issues at launch, the game was also filled with terrible characters, zero challenging gameplay whatsoever. You can literally breeze through this game without even trying. Overused enemy types and assets, horrible skill tree with no worthwhile upgrades whatsoever no matter which character you pick, a very short campaign that can be completed in 4 hours. Terrible graphics that are the equivalent of the original Xbox. Generic voice acting, shitty guns, boring powers, insultingly half-assed presentation with static, boring frames for cutscenes instead of actually fully animated ones. You know, because laziness is the name of the game. Egregious music that doesn't fit the actual things happening on screen at all, being some weird, random techno pop shit. And its greatest sin of all, selling the game at a full price $70 with physical copies that are nothing more than empty fucking cases. They actually had the fucking nerve to make people pay $70 to $100 for an empty case with no disc whatsoever. Instead, it forces you to buy it digitally. Then what the fuck was the point of releasing a physical copy, you may be asking, if they're not even going to manufacture discs for it? Because fuck you, give me money, that's why, says Bethesda. This is a shitty-ass company who now makes nothing but shitty-ass games that you can't even buy a physical copy for anymore. That is beyond fucked up. And that one thing alone is more than enough to put it over Gollum, over Rise of Kong, over everything else on this fucking list. Fuck you, Bethesda. Fuck you, Arcane Austin. And most of all, fuck this shitty ass game. And for that reason, so many more that I could go into in depth, but I've already wasted enough of my time with this fucking bullshit as is. It is undeniably, undisputably, the absolute worst fucking game of 2023. Fuck this shit. And with that, I am done. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching this video to the end. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And stay tuned as we're going to end the year on a high note. Because while there were a lot of really abysmal, awful games this year, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. That light was the fact that this was one of the greatest games in greatest years of gaming in all of history. So, join me next time when we spend hopefully an hour or so praising the greatest games this year had to offer. And there were so many of them. So, it's going to be a fun video. It's going to be a positive video. We're going to end this year on the most loudest positive bang that I can think of. So, I will see you guys next time for the top 20 best games of 2023. Until then, have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow for that video. Take care, guys. And don't play any of the games on the worst list, please. I make these lists every year and suffer through these games, so you don't have to. Yep, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Peace.